for joining us for another Origins of Christian Rock. And this week, it's a real special treat to have Frank Hart from Atomic Opera joining us this week. And so, obviously, Frank has been around quite a while. Atomic Opera started in, I believe it was 91. We'll talk to Frank about this. And so sit back, enjoy the conversation, and we'll go double screen view and get Frank on the line here. 1 minute. All right, Frank, how are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to connect and kind of reminisce about the old days and where Atomic Opera, where you are at these days as well.
So you have people that watch your show, listen to your show, that are interested in music?
Can you believe it?
Man.
Last night I was watching the documentary. It's a 2-hour documentary on the Beastie Boys that Apple TV put out. And they kept going back to days where people actually watched music videos and listened to music. And, as they were reminiscing about the days gone past. So yeah, it's actually, there's people part of Sanctuary that actually want to talk music and enjoy it.
Man, my teenage years were spent just holding album artwork and listening, and watching the record go around in circles with the needle in the groove, and just big old stupid stereo system in my room, and like that was entertainment.
Oh,
just
yeah.
sitting and listening to music and poring over these liner notes and photos and what do they mean by this.
That was a big deal to get the albums back in the day and read the lyrics and dive into that a bit. You don't get that anymore.
No, it was so cool. And vinyl is popular again. So
yeah,
I guess people figured out, that really was fun.
I thoroughly miss the mom and pop record stores. It's a rare thing to find a few. We got a couple down in Milwaukee, one in College Town up by us. So I'm 2 hours north of Milwaukee, an hour west of Green Bay, which puts us between Green Bay and Stevens Point, and both college towns. And there's one little record shop in each one I like to just go into and just rifle through things as we used to do.
Yeah. I remember I was in college. I was in Springfield, Missouri, and there was this place called Spin Again Records.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a used record store. And I had I got married when I was 20. I'm halfway through college, and I wanted to do music.
Okay.
And I can remember I was praying, and I remember the Lord didn't speak to me in an audible voice, but here's the sense that I got from that prayer, that if I'm going to do music, I should probably pay attention to the music that's actually happening in the world that I'm living in, and not just in the subculture that I had been crawling around in. So
okay.
That was the year that I stopped listening to Christian rock and started listening to the current cutting edge bands of the day, like the Police.
Okay.
And, Yes. And, just like I went to that Spin Again shop, and I would just talk to the owner there and just buy all kinds of records and take them home and listen to them and study.
How did your parents respond
happening in the world? Oh, how my parents? Oh, well, I was living. I'd moved out.
Oh, that's true. You were out, yeah.
And plus, they didn't care. I wasn't raised in a Christian home, so
okay.
Whole Christian rock thing was all my idea. But for me, it was all about. I was just absolutely enamored with all of the '80s Christian rock people. I was like, I grew up in Central Illinois. One of my favorites was Archangel and Kemper Crab. I didn't know him. Yeah, I mean, he's best friend now, but didn't know him back then. He's part of my church. We do ministry together. We've done ministry together for almost 30 years. But back then, he was just a poster on my wall, along with, I wanted to be Larry Norman. I just flat out wanted to be Larry Norman.
Yeah.
Dyed my hair blonde and everything. It's like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. Then I figured out the world already had a Larry Norman. I should probably figure out how to be a Frank Hart. So we started doing that at some point. But yeah, and Randy Stonehill and, even like Petra and DeGarmo and Key. And of course, I think you and I met at Cornerstone,
We did.
like back in probably 95,
I would
maybe.
guess that would probably be about 94, 95, because I remember that was the year I started, the year after I started youth pastoring, and I was told I can't go there anymore. I can't take the teens to that. So, so yeah, it was like the year I remember seeing, Atomic Opera was one of the main groups I was there to see. And
Nice.
what a show it delivered. I remember at one point you were just going through each song, and man, as soon as you started Justice, it just sounded like I was listening to the CD. And but then it was the same concert that you had Trip Wamsley with you. I mean, this guy is a monster on the bass. And to be honest with you, I've been at this church now 15 years, and I had Trip up here 3 times to do concerts because I was just
Nice.
love the guy.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. He is definitely an amazing musician, and he is definitely a trip.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm.
It's you never know what you're going to get when you bring him in concert.
But with the Cornerstone thing, what was fun about that for me is I got to meet all of these people that I had been so in love with their music when I was a teenager. So I just got to meet them kind of as peers, and that was really fun because I got to meet Larry Norman, and I got to meet Glenn Kaiser because I loved Resurrection Band.
Oh yeah.
And, so Phil Kagi, I got to play with Phil Kagi at Cornerstone. I mean, how cool is that?
That's an iconic moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, going back a little ways here, perhaps you could talk about the start of Atomic Opera, because I mean, if anybody do a basic web search, it says 91 is when you got your start, and you're from Texas, and let's just be honest here. It seems like any rock group that comes out of Texas is phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of King's X, and in fact, in 2 weeks we're going to be interviewing Monty from Galactic Cowboys. But all 3 of your groups, you were produced by Sam Taylor, and it seems like anything that guy put his hands to was phenomenal. What can you talk to us a little bit about your start and how you got Atomic Opera going?
Well, if you back up a little bit more than that, the Houston connection actually starts in Springfield, Missouri. I was going to school there to be a pastor.
Now I got to ask you really quick, what school were you going to?
Central Bible College.
Wow, you're a fellow AG boy, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fellow with who?
What's that?
Fellow with who? Did you go to CBC?
I went through Berean University. I was born and raised Assembly of God. So I know,
right.
When you said Springfield, I don't know if it was a trigger or it was a aha moment.
Right.
So, no, right. That's cool.
Yeah. So right out of high school, I went to Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. I was going to be a pastor, going to go into full-time church work ministry.
Yeah.
And music, I just started having success in music. So started playing in the club scene in Springfield, Missouri. And that's where I met Doug and Jerry and Ty and Alan Doss and David Olerking. I mean, I met them all while we were all just playing the same club circuit. And so then King's X, they were called Sneak Preview at the time, but they moved down to Houston. They started working with Sam Taylor, Wild Silas Music Works, and keeping in touch with them. They're like, Frank, dude, your band would have a better chance if you came down here. So
yeah,
we did. I moved down here with nothing more than, like my wife and I and a dog and a van full of nothing. And we just lived in a bad apartment. I worked at Domino's Pizza and just tried to live the dream.
Okay.
So that was a band called Love in Gray. I was the bass player for that band.
Really? Okay.
And for a while, when we first got here, Alan Doss from Galactic Cowboys was the drummer.
Oh.
He and I had done a Christian rock band in Springfield, Missouri called Fire Escape. And that's where we met and where we first started doing music together.
Okay.
But then we started a different band, Love in Gray. And that was very much an atmospheric, The Cure, The Police, U2 kind of minimalist, very emotional, but kind of heavy grooves.
Okay. Have a touch of like new wave or anything?
It was more like The Awful Truth.
Okay.
It was more similar to that, but it was a little more atmospheric and a little more, I don't know. It wasn't quite as heavy, but
Yeah.
it was heavy.
Okay.
So anyway, that was the band that I moved to Texas, and so we tried. Sam worked with us. We made some demos. We did some things, and man, we had the opportunity. People heard us, and they just passed. I mean, I love that band. I love the music, but
Yeah.
it's just not what God had for me to do, and
Okay.
it didn't happen. So then around 90, I left that band. I started thinking about a new project. And that new project is the one that became Atomic Opera. So,
Now,
and the way that,
where'd the name for that band come from?
oh, we're not going to get to the name here for a few minutes.
Okay. Don't rush things here.
Yeah, we weren't named for a while.
Okay.
We were just Frank's new project. So, Doug Pinnick from King's X, he said he had a friend that was a kid named Lynn Saunier, and he said he's a really great songwriter and a great singer, and maybe the two of you should get together. Well, he was more of a bass player than a guitar player. I was a bass player, so hey, let's just have an all bass player band. But no, he and I got together and we started working on some songs. He wrote a song that became Spinning from the Alpha and Oranges project, and I brought a song that what was one of the first ones that I brought? Maybe December, like that. That's pretty early. So anyway, we made this demo with these songs on it, and I was going to a church where Kemper was one of the ministers. Kemper Crab was one of the ministers,
Yeah.
and Dave Marshall, who played in Archangel and played on the Vigil and Kemper's sideman for years and years and years. His son played acoustic guitar in the church band.
Such a talented family, my goodness.
Oh yeah, and that just keeps going. Like Jonathan's son is also a great musician, and I mean,
wow.
all of Jonathan's his brother is a great musician. Anyway, that's side trail. They're all amazing. But I so I'm putting together this project. I talked to Kemper and Dave, and they're like, well, we're kind of doing our thing. They were doing Radio Halo at the time.
Yep, I remember that.
We're kind of doing our thing, but my son Jonathan is actually coming into his own. He's got some great musical sensibilities, and he's becoming a great guitar player. And he was 16 years old. I mean, I knew him as a kid from the church. So I gave him that demo that Lynn and I had been working on, and I said, well, learn these songs and let's get together and play. And so he showed up, and a couple weeks later, he came to our rehearsal room, and he was so shy, 16-year-old. And I wasn't quite as nice back then as I am now. So I was, sort of just kind of direct. He was great. Okay. He was absolutely great. And Lynn was great. And then Lynn brought a guy in named Mark. That was a friend of his from Louisiana. And Mark was a great drummer, but he played really, really soft. And so I kept telling him, it's like, dude, we're not Fleetwood Mac. You're going to have to hit those drums, man, if this is going to work.
Now, not to jump ahead. Is this the same Mark that was your drummer for the first Atomic Opera album?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes,
you really inspired him then, because like War Drum, that guy's all over the drums on that thing.
Oh yeah. So anyway, so all through this, like this sort of and then so we did an audition. We did like basically. Now I had a 4-person band. We didn't have a name. We had, I don't know, maybe 8 songs. But those songs, like Joyride was one of them.
Yeah.
Like we had like 8 songs, and Rain Parade, and Fever Dream. So we booked this little Wednesday night gig at a place called Zelda's, and Zelda's is like one of those underground, barely has a PA. New bands play there, and no one cares. Like it's one of those, right?
Okay.
So we were playing. We got a Wednesday night at Zelda's, and it was just an audition. Honestly, I just wanted to videotape it and then watch it later with Sam and think about which ones of these people were going to be in the band. And but that's not how it worked out. The way it worked out is everyone in the world came to that show. We
Oh,
completely packed Zelda's, just stupidly full. Everyone was there. My previous band was there. King's X was there. The Awful Truth was there. The guys that would later become the Galactic Cowboys, a bunch of them. I mean, like everybody was there.
yeah.
All of the music scene from Houston that were all tied up in that were friends. So now it matters.
It's a big deal.
Now it matters. It didn't matter. Now it matters. Anyway, we played our guts out. But right before we started to play, I turned around and I looked at Mark and I said, Mark, this is an audition. You're going to have to hit those drums. And Len said something a little more colorful, and basically said, if you want to be in this band, you're going to have to hit those drums.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, the end of that night ended up with broken cymbals, blood all over the drum kit, and I never played another show with Mark that wasn't the way the show ended. He always broke his drums. He always bled all over his drums.
Wow.
Like we just did a show, I don't know, a year ago. Same thing, man. He was like, well, I'm 100% here because he was bleeding. His technique was he thought the drum sounded better if he kind of caught his finger on the side of the snare along with the stick.
Okay.
And that's just how he plays.
Huh.
He wants to feel it. So yeah, you're right. He certainly was not a timid, mild-mannered drummer. He was just kind of quiet in rehearsal for a while, but no, he lost that, and then that was gone. Cymbal shards. That's all we ever had at the end. I remember one time after we had the Warner Brothers deal, we had a little bit of money to get some new gear. So I bought Mark some really nice cymbals with band money, right?
Yeah.
So I brought, so he put them on his drums and he had some new sticks. And so here we are, first song. And it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, broken cymbal.
Oh no.
$700. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So are there any hidden recordings from the Zelda show that you guys have to this day?
I have a videotape of it somewhere in
Wow.
boxes of videotapes. So sure. Yeah. And then, so it ended up, we ended up, the four of us, well, we did have to come up with a name though, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way you name a band, have you ever named a band?
I have not.
Yeah. See, the way that it's always the same. It's a communal project and it's painful, and it always goes the same. You show up in a room and you start throwing names around, and at first it's the names that people have thought of before they showed up.
Feeling good about it.
And yeah, so they got a little bit of thought into it, and they're a little defensive about their ideas, and they're very careful. But then somebody makes a joke name, and then all bets are off. And now for the next hours, it's just going to be ridiculous names that aren't really names, but you're writing everything down anyway.
Yeah.
And then people start getting serious again, but nothing sounds like a name anymore. It's like, everything could be a name. Nothing is. They're all terrible. So like a whole bunch of song names became like Rain Parade, Fever Dream, like everything. Like I used all those things later. But what ended up happening was somebody said Atomic Eve.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's cool. Like Adam and Eve, Atomic Eve. And then someone else said Underground Opera.
Mm.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. And then we just wrote them down. And then I said, what about Atomic Opera? And no, that's terrible. And we kept going. So we had a list of, I don't know, 50, 60, 100,000 names. All of them were terrible. And actually I was in church like that next Sunday. And I was sitting next to Doug Pinnick in church.
Okay.
And he wrote something on a piece of paper, and then he leans over and he whispered in my ear. He said, I thought of a name for your band. He goes, this is it. And he hands me a sheet of paper that says Pound Hound.
Wow. How about
Yeah.
that?
And I'm like, I like it. I'm not feeling it for us though. I'm thinking Atomic Opera. And he's like, oh, that could work too. So anyway, we went with Atomic Opera. And I guess the idea is that it's sort of destructive and angry, and explosive. like, sort of it's got energy, but at the same time, there's story,
Yeah.
and it's like cold and violent.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, it's the operas are that way, and honestly, the wording in your music, the quality of music, has that same appeal to it.
That's right. We were always too heavy for people who liked mellow music and too mellow for people who liked heavy music. We found that spot right in the middle that no one really liked. So that worked out really well for us. We did the same thing with the sort of theology, because my lyrics have always just sort of been theology being processed through poetry.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been my lyrics. So my lyrics end up being, too sacred for the secular and too secular for the sacred. And so I find that happy no man's land with the lyrics too. It was just great.
Yeah, well, that's good. And Pound Hound didn't go to waste. Doug ended up using that.
Yeah, nothing goes to waste. It becomes a song title, an album title, another band.
Yeah,
Nothing ever
yeah,
goes to waste.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting because like your first album was called For Madmen Only, and so
What's
that's
that from? You know
what's
what that's
that?
from? Do you know what that's from?
What's that from?
For Mad Men Only. I always wonder if anybody ever knows what the reference is.
I don't.
Yeah, so there's a German existential novelist called Hermann Hesse, and he has a book called Steppenwolf. That's where they got their name.
Okay.
But anyway, I love that book, and it's a trippy book. But at one point, he goes for a walk, and he comes across this theater. It's a neon sign floating. It's just kind of, I don't remember very well, honestly. It's been a long time since I read, but he comes across this neon sign that is for an underground secret theater company.
Oh,
And it says For Madmen Only.
well,
So anyway, that's where that title came from.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and then your other albums you had, so after Madmen Only was Penguin Dust. I remember I was a Christian bookstore music buyer for quite a few years. It was for a while there was a top 100 Christian bookstore for music, and I was brought in for the underground and heavy stuff, and we had another guy that took care of the top 40 and that sort of thing. And I remember when we got the Atomic Opera, the first one in for Mad Men, there's a ton of voices out there that you can hear, okay, and ton of voices that you can hear on your CD player, and then you go to something like Cornerstone and you hear them live, you're like, I think I'm done, that sadly, but your voice, it's iconic, and anybody that has that sound, and anybody that follows King's X, it was like, these guys have got to be intertwined somehow. But so you did Penguin Dust was the next one. And so that one too was the name behind that. Where did you come up with Penguin Dust?
So that's from a poem by Gregory Corso.
Okay.
Where he is talking about basically the disintegration of Western culture as it's manifested mostly in marriage.
Mm.
And at some point, it's a long poem, and in the middle of the poem, he starts spewing madness. And one of the phrases that he says is penguin dust.
Wow.
I just like the phrase.
It's catchy.
It's a symptom of madness.
Okay.
I think it really just means snow. But anyway, he was spiraling into nonsense at that point in the poem, which I love. I love nonsense.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I just thought it was an intrinsically funny phrase.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you had Elf and Oranges, and then was that after that you did Gospel Cola?
So what I liked about the name Atomic Opera is, of course, Christ is the Alpha and the Omega. Atomic Opera, the A and the Omega symbol work, AO, but then also
which you worked into the artwork on that album.
Oh yeah, all over the place. But then also the anarchy symbol, so you have this idea of beauty and destruction, hope and hopelessness, all kind of tied up there. So then I thought, well, the alpha and oranges, it's kind of like alpha and omega, apples and oranges. So anyway, I think it was still more silliness because I like silliness, but it's deep rooted silliness. That's what it is.
Sure. Well,
now Now, Alpha and Oranges is that actually is the oldest music, because that's a bunch of stuff that we did as demos and sort of leftover tracks from Mad Men Only.
Okay.
So Alpha and Oranges is actually all Sam Taylor produced music that's older than anything else.
Huh. Well, that's interesting to know. And is that's available through your website, which we have on the screen right now, frankhart.com.
Oh, good.
So
Perfect.
that's
Go
available
there.
through there. Because I don't think a lot of people knew about the Alpha and Oranges. You know, at least up here they didn't. So,
Probably not.
Yeah. So if they can figure that out and get it, you know, purchase it down, is it available in CD or download?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so does Atomic Opera, do you guys have anything on the horizon? Or, I mean, you mentioned that you went out and did a concert and stuff. So are you guys thinking about another album down the road, or where are you heading now?
There is always the possibility that we could do something if all of our lives align in perfect geometry and allow us to come together in the same space and time.
There you go.
We have songs, we have ideas.
And you gotta do your social distancing though.
Yeah, apparently.
Right. Yeah, that's it would be awesome to see. You know, it would be awesome. And I don't know that a lot of people, you know, when I put up the promo piece that we're going to be doing an interview with you, some people were commenting, "Oh my goodness, I forgot about Atomic Opera and whatnot." So this is going to be refreshing for them to see. And you know, you kind of have the same hairstyle. I don't know if you still have the ponytail coming off the back.
You know, it was 2 years ago Easter that I saw a photo of myself from church, and my ponytail wouldn't stay untucked from my jacket. And that was the end. The recession had made it all the way back to the ponytail, and I was not pleased. So it went the way of all flesh.
You know, you talked earlier on. I like to tap into some of my music roots from the music buying days, and we have concerts up at our church. We're just a little church of about 80 people, but we've had Glenn and Wendy Kaiser in, and Rex Carroll did some blues stuff, and actually had Randy Stonehill at our church twice.
He's great, isn't he great?
He's a phenomenal guy. I did a Easter series called the Keith Green Easter, and each week was a title of one of his songs, and we brought Randy in to do Your Love Broke Through and share about, you know, leading Keith to the Lord and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool time. And you know, we had John Schlitt there and stuff, but you know, inevitably any guy will talk about the ongoing recession of their hair, you know, and so I totally get it. You know,
yeah. At some point, I just gave up and just shaved my head, and that became a lot easier.
It is. It's a lot easier. So, a couple last questions for you. I ask everybody that we're interviewing this question. What was your most memorable concert?
Well, there's been a lot of memorable concerts. Are you meaning the ones that like we did, or that we attend, or that I attended?
So the ones that you guys did.
Okay. So we had just released for Mad Men Only.
Mm-hmm.
This is it's 93, and we were going to be joining Dio on his Strange Highways tour.
Wow.
So we hopped in my Ford van and we drove up to Summerfest in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, yes.
Yeah. So this is day one of real tour, you know, for Atomic Opera, and we play on this stage in front of 25,000 people. It's our first set.
Okay, and this was for Dio.
Yeah,
you were on the Marcus Amphitheater stage, because that's where they would only bring Dio, I'm sure. That's the big pay stage at Summerfest.
Yeah, well, the band that played immediately after us was Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh yeah, you're on the big stage then.
Yeah. So that was. Now here's the thing: we never got to see that again. So the first concert we ever got to play on tour was that one, and then, you know, the rest of the tour we played 3,000 to 5,000 seat theaters.
Okay.
So we did that for quite a long time, and that was great. That was fun, but it would have been nice to do one of those big festivals again, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Milwaukee, so I went to Summerfest all the time, and yeah, if you played that stage, that was, that's everything. All the stages are free. That's the world's largest music festival, and except that Marcus Amphitheater, that's where all the headliners go. And boy,
Yeah.
that's cool to hear that you got to play that.
Oh, it was so good. The other one that I would remember would be we flew up to New York to open for King's X at the Ritz.
Hmm.
So it was New York City. It was a big schmooze show for them.
Yeah.
And, Sam just wanted us to be exposed to this group. We barely had a name at this point. This was still Lynn playing in the band instead of Jonas. And that was a lot of fun because, first of all, it was a historic theater, like where the Talking Heads had played and U2 had played. So it was like just an iconic theater to play at. But then afterwards, the backstage party, it's like I'm meeting Lenny Kravitz and, David Frick. And, it's like, it was unbelievable.
Wow.
So never really got to do anything like that again either. But that was pretty cool.
Oh, cool. That, how God just lines these things, it's you saying yes to your talent and dreaming and your artistry, and then God just takes you places. It's for a purpose, that you
Sure.
were there.
So. And I wrote a book called Joyride, and I like to say that it's the story of being almost successful. And it's God was very kind to me and let me do the things that I dreamed of doing when I was a teenager. He let me do those things. I got to ride that roller coaster.
Wow.
I got to taste that joy.
Yeah.
But that's not what he had for me to do long term.
Okay.
He did want me to return to that pastoral ministry that I had started, right? He really did call me to that. And he let me take a little diversion.
Yeah.
But then it was back to seminary, and now I'm the pastor of a church in Katy, Texas.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, some people just assume once a metalhead, always a metalhead. And like Rex Carroll, he was a mail carrier for a while, and a lot of people doing other things. And Frank Hart's not a headbanger 24/7. A lot of people don't know what you're doing currently. And so you want to let us know what you're up to.
Yeah, well, right now I'm trying to figure out what it means that my daughter is going to go to college and move out of the house in August.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know, right? And my son, he'll be a senior in high school next year, and those are my two kids.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, and my dad lives here in the house with us. And I planted a church 5 years ago. So we have a church called New Church, one word, New Church. Newchurch.love, if you want to check that out just for fun.
All right. Newchurch.love.
Yeah. So we do that, and I've released, a few solo albums that, they have some heavy music on them. They've got some mellow. I like the combination of sort of mellow and heavy. I like that combination. So
yeah,
everything kind of lands in that space.
That's very cool. Do you get people that walk into your church and, I may not even know you and may all of a sudden just realize like, oh my goodness, that's Kemper Crab over there, or oh my goodness, that's Frank Hart from Atomic Opera. Do you get people like that ever?
Yes, that does happen occasionally, and more often than you would think, that they just kind of showed up and then they're like, "What? You're that guy?" As opposed to, you would think this would happen more, but it doesn't happen very often. Where they would go, "I wonder whatever happened to," and then they show up because they just want to check out Kemper's church or Frank's church. That doesn't happen as much as you would think.
Sure. Well, and that's the cool thing about this is, this type of interview, people down in that area may be listening and, they all of a sudden, wow, that's what Frank's up to. We got to go check it out. That'd be, that'd be really cool to see that happen.
Yep.
It's Sanctuary's done a great job with their YouTube channel. They have 18,000 plus subscribers. And so it'd be really neat to see that. Last question for you that we ask everybody. And maybe you follow it, maybe you don't. What are your thoughts on the current Christian rock or metal scene?
Woefully unaware of any of it.
Okay.
But I will say this: heavy music is a perfect vehicle for teaching God's word, speaking the word of God, prophetic and poetic and theological coming together. I mean, I think it's the best genre for actually speaking the word of the Lord. Just setting the emotion of anger and rebuke and repent, like things that need to be said. This is part of preaching.
Oh yeah.
And that there's not a better genre of music for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope that there's a robust Christian metal scene out there with some well articulated theologians with a microphone that are actually saying what God would say to the people that can hear. I hope that's still happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some really good ministry bands out there yet that are doing what you said. There's a lot more out there, just, like any generation, there are those other bands, but yeah, there are quite a few yet that are still doing that. So that's really cool.
Well, who should I be aware of? I mean, you obviously are still into this thing. So
yeah.
Who should I look up?
I actually like, there's a group called Taking the Head of Goliath. Just the name of it captures your attention, but very much a ministry oriented band that Sanctuary's used on their stage a couple times at Audio Feed, because Cornerstone's no longer around, but Audio Feed, and there's this other one that's getting off the ground called Capstone. So another one called Broken Flesh. In fact, the lead singer, he did a podcast series on Sanctuary that heavily steeped in theology, and so yeah, there's still some bands out there that are doing it. So
good.
Yeah.
It's the perfect vehicle for it.
Yeah, and even the person we interviewed last, Jimmy Brown, he talked about how much he would just share, in his concerts. I remember that I was there at those concerts, and God's given you guys a stage, and it's great to see, something like Atomic Opera that weaves, heavy thoughts and heavy theology into the lyrics, and it's very much appreciated. It's a breath of fresh air, is what it is. So. But, Frank, I appreciate you chatting with us. And, I oftentimes say there's if someone grew up in the 80s, then they would remember the Larry Normans, the Sweet Comfort Band, Barry McGuire's of that era. And those that grew up in this era, there's the iconic voice, iconic bands that they remember from the Christian scene. And, Frank, I'd put you on that shelf, that it's just a group that nobody will forget, and we would cheer on new stuff, but just by you being available and chatting and catching up, I speak for everybody and say we appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Of all my Houston friends, I heard you said you were going to have Monty, but you got to have Ben.
Oh, okay.
Ben would be fun.
And I will maybe you could send me his information. That'd be outstanding.
I can hook you. He's on Facebook all the time, getting mad about this and that. So
okay, that sounds good. All right, Frank. Well, you take care, and we will hopefully talk to you again soon.
Sure, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.